Good afternoon and welcome to Business Basics. This is Lee Iben with Action Coach Campus, and we're interviewing today David Bywater with TruArt Color Graphics. And David and I, we go way back. I used to work for his dad back in the day, and what they had to tell us at TruArt Color Graphics is an exciting story. So David, I'm really glad that you're here with us this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
You bet, Lee. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit. You're an Iowa City-based business. You're kind of the quiet giant there on the side of town. You used to be downtown, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we're in the building that now houses the Press Citizen and used to house Devotee, if you want to know where the restaurant was.
Yes.
That was our old building for 63 years. We were there from 1922 to 1986, 85-ish.
Yeah, that's great. And then you moved. You decided you needed more space.
More space, but in addition, we wanted all of our manufacturing on one floor. And so we moved out to the industrial park here at the corner of Hines Road and Highway 6. And we've been here since 1986 and have expanded twice since we've been here. So
wow. And TruArt Color Graphics, yeah, it's a great location. And you guys kind of do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we call ourselves a printing and advertising firm, and we are a commercial printer first and foremost. But the interesting thing about the printing company is that we also manufacture promotional calendars. And those advertising calendars, if you will, or calendars carry an advertising message. And we make them for folks that sell in the promotional products industry and then use them, distribute them and so forth. So think of the calendar that you might get from your bank or your insurance agent or what have you. There's a chance that we might have made it.
Exactly. And that's no small business either, David. I mean, I remember back in the late 80s, you were doing calendars all over the US for one thing, probably broader than that.
That's true. We have fun manufacturing calendars for folks in all 50 states, and we exported that product to 10 countries last year. So folks who wanted the product to go to other markets and so on, some with translations and some with not. We have a company in Germany that likes one of our stock calendar products that has cowboy cartoons on it. And why they like this product, I have no idea. But they buy 100 of them every year, and we send them to them. So
I love it. I just love it. And Stan Herring, right? Was that the local artist?
Yep, Stan was an artist that we worked with for years and kind of set the tone for some of that business. We work with artists in Des Moines. We have one in Kerrville, Texas. That's where the cowboy art comes from, cartoons come from. And just different folks here and there. So it's fun.
Oh yeah. So you have an interesting sales force. I mean, I know you have folks locally for local print business, but you also have a sales force throughout the U.S. too, correct?
Yeah, we actually go to market 4 different ways. We do a traditional in-person sales force here in Iowa City that we're calling on customers and talking on folks. You can come out and visit us, but we'd much rather come to you and talk to you about your project or what have you. Then we sell through independent contractors as well. And so that's really the advertising side of our business, which goes under the name Bankers Advertising.
Yes.
And those independent contractors are spread throughout the country. We have about 150 of them, mainly concentrated in the Midwest. But, you know, I talked to a lady from Vermont this morning, one from Minnesota on Friday, and Indiana on Monday. And so it's kind of fun to work with different people here and there. The third way we go to markets is we have distributors who sell our calendar line as well. In other words, we give them a catalog and we tell them what we're going to charge them to produce the order, but then they go out and sell it and charge what they deem appropriate and what the market will bear. And so that's another way we do it. And then the fourth way we do it is we do have an e-commerce small division that does business mostly dedicated to certain businesses, in other words, company stores and that sort of thing, but also some general purpose customer facing e-commerce that we get inquiries from and so forth via the websites that we have for TruArt and for bankers. So that's a growing part of our business and an interesting one, as you know.
It is. And you don't just build a network like that overnight. You have been in business for a long time, and you said earlier you're 5th generation. How has that transition happened over the years?
That's a really good question. The business was started in 1896 by my great-great-grandfather. Wow. And he was a newspaper person. He came to Iowa City from Ohio and bought one of the forerunners of the Iowa City Press Citizen. He owned a paper called the Iowa State Press. And he enjoyed the newspaper business. That was his experience. But at the same time, where he came from in Ohio, there was a company that was doing things like we do today. And he thought that's an interesting way to continue to use my presses. In other words, print paper products with an advertising message on them. And so,
Right.
so he started that business in 1896. He sold the newspaper in 1904 and got out of it to focus on this. And we've been doing that ever since. And so think of the promotional calendar as something that you goes back, over 100 and probably 150 years. There's one that is dated 1907 in our office space. When you walk in the door, you'll see it. And it's a product that we made back in 1906. Anyway, so he started that business and then along the way got into producing bank supplies, which is why the other side of our business is named Bankers Advertising Company, because it was originally Bankers Advertising and Supply.
Right.
So think of check registers and file folders and calendars, of course, and deposit slips and all that kind of stuff that went with the banking industry years ago and to some extent still today.
Oh, yeah. And we've come a long way too, David, because back when, the internet started to flourish and we could start having PDF documents. And I think even Bill Gates wrote a book way back in the late 90s about how print was essentially going to go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that, David.
No, but it's become more targeted in how you use it. And I think it's been appropriate. When people ask me about that, they say, well, I bet the internet is hurting your business. And I say, well, it's changing our business. And yes, there are certain things that we're not doing today that we once did. But, I think there are a number of things that we still do, which fit our marketplace really, really well, that we have a lot of fun with. The example I like to use is when you think about the change or evolution of technology is the tax return. If you have been doing your own income taxes for a long time, you remember you might have gone to the post office or the library and found the form that you needed to fill out and then filled out and so forth. Well, the world is so much better today because we're not producing all that extra paper and we're not having to do that exercise of run down there at 10:30 on April 15th and try to find the right form.
Right, exactly.
We can now wait till 11:15 because we can download it anyway. But what we have always done is a lot of specialty printing and manufacturing for folks related to that. And so our calendars, for example, are very customized. They're produced for a very specific reason or a very specific market, designed to touch people in a certain way, designed for very specific use. Mm-hmm. Excuse me for a second.
That's all right.
The interesting thing is that she's going to call me right back. I'll call you back, please. Thanks. So in wanting a calendar,
the joy of ownership, right, David?
That's right. That's right. If I hit that button, they may not call anymore. Okay. So what I was saying is the specialty side of our business. Right now, for example, we're producing planners for the Iowa City Community School District. And the idea here is to send every kid home with a way to be organized and take care of themselves going forward throughout the school year. And we will make 5,000 of them, and they will be customized for the school district based on the subjects that they want to make sure are covered each day, as well as the student handbook is in the front of the book so that they've got that information always at their fingertips. And the best thing about that for the district is that they can say that they handed that to every single student. They aren't relying on someone to go online and find it or otherwise, or miss the email that we all get hundreds of during the course of the day.
Right.
So we design products that are very specific and eliminate the waste where it's not needed and move forward that way. And the computer has been helpful to us in part because people do a lot of their own design work. And so gone are the days where we spend a lot of time typesetting or image editing or what have you. Most of that is now provided to us. We're just mainly duplicating it and then assembling it to make a nice finished product.
That's terrific. I mean, and so we had digital printing, kind of talk about that a little bit. I mean, are you still using those real big gargantuan presses in the back, or are those kind of going by the wayside now?
Well, we have one and we still run it every day. And we do a lot of color work on it, but it is an interesting machine because it was built for long runs and it's expensive to set up. And so we will produce jobs on it where we need essentially 100 sheets of a certain size that will produce that way, which would be a very, very small run. But most of that work is, yes, indeed, moving to a digital production environment where we're either putting toner or spraying ink onto a sheet to make the finished product for the customer. And the
Right.
neat thing about that is there's a lot more capability related to making variable print pieces, such that, you know, the one that you would receive might be different from the one I receive, with information that pertains to each of our own interests specifically directed to us. And so we can do a lot more things with in the digital world that way.
So when I get a postcard, oh, go ahead, Nick.
After you.
I was saying, so when I get a postcard from Disney World, it says, "Hey, Lee Iben," that was specifically printed, right?
Yes, and I hope they would build that based on what your interests were from the last time that you visited. So, you know, let's say that you went to the Magic Kingdom and they wanted to remind you of how much fun that you had on the on Space Mountain, for example, and instead they want to invite you to say, okay, why don't you give our other parks a try, or please come back and enjoy the magic again, you know. The example I'm thinking of right now, we do a project for Whiffles, the seed company. And one of the things that they do in the fall every year, I think is kind of neat. We send out a postcard, and the postcard for Whiffles has information about one of their seed plots. So they go out and they harvest, and from the combine, they get all this data that says, here's what our yields were. And then they send a postcard to all the neighboring farmers to say, how did you do? This is how we did, you know, such that they can compare, you know, seed varieties against the same terrain, the same weather conditions, and so forth, with the hope of promoting Whiffles in a way that says, you know, give us a try next year if you didn't use our product.
Right.
So they have test plots or seed plots that are scattered all over eastern Iowa and western Illinois. And as they move north with harvest, we'll do a postcard for each one of them to the neighbors. And there's probably, you know, 20 different versions of that mailed to a select group of people in that particular neighborhood. So.
And do you handle the mail service then as well?
We do, yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's fantastic.
So, and if you need us to develop a list for you, we can do that. If you need us to target a specific area, we can do that. We actually print the library's mirror newsletter. We have that coming up right now for Iowa City. And that is a project where it's designed so that every mailbox in the county, or essentially Iowa City and part of the county, get that, depending on their affiliation with the library.
Wow. So, it is definitely grown since the old, you know, you want that 4-color, we're going to charge a per color. So, you know, it's not the same anymore, is it?
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's probably, I shouldn't pick on him, but, you know, my dad and I, you know, are always learning something new in the industry every day. And we sometimes both have to get beyond our limitations of how it used to be, our thinking of, you know, this is, yes, requires a set of plates or what have you. And moving into a day where the digital thing creates so much more versatility for us. And sometimes we have to stop our old thinking to make sure that we're embracing the new.
Right, exactly. That's so true. So you're 5th generation. This has been a succession. I mean, it's kind of like the king and the throne there, David. I mean, seriously, it's like when you were a little kid, it's like, I think I'll probably working for Dad. I think down the road, right?
It was something that I wanted to try. And when I graduated from college, I came home, or I went to work in Kansas City for about 3 years. And then my grandfather hired me. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And my plan was to come to Iowa City, work for it for 2 years, and then go get an MBA or grad school or what have you. Well, I never left, and have enjoyed it so far. And I guess 27 years later now, so 28.
Wow.
So,
time flies, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. And it's fun. So
yeah, it is. It's an exciting industry to be involved with. Every day is different. Every job is different. Of course, you know, working with customers, some are more knowledgeable about printing capacities, others not so much. So you get an opportunity there to educate people about the process.
Oh, that's really true. And it's our job to really be knowledgeable of the process and be knowledgeable of the options and to present to the customer, you know, different solutions. But more than that is to talk to them and really listen to what it is that they're trying to accomplish. Because sometimes they come to the table saying, I want a specific print piece. And we can, through visiting with them about their goals and who they're trying to reach, come up with something completely different to accomplish what they're trying to do, but only better. Maybe that's more efficiently, maybe that's with less expense or otherwise. But we try to talk through the project just because little things can make a big difference. So. Oh,
they can. You know, the project you did for me with those big green signs around town, I just, in my head, was on poster board, run it through a press. And you came back with, what about vinyl? And we'll screen print them. Well, they looked fantastic, and everyone preferred the vinyl because they're weather resistant, and we
Mhm.
can put them outside. And they're still hanging up around town. I think Shakespeare's still has theirs up. There's a couple folks over in Williamsburg have one up.
Yeah. No, I see them constantly.
Yeah, and they look as good as they did the day we put them up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was great. So tell me, COVID-19 kind of hit everybody hard. How did it impact your industry?
That's a good question. People are surprised when I say we never closed. We haven't missed an hour of work during this situation. But of course, we have been changed very much how we do business and how we're working with customers. I sit at my desk chair most of the day now, as opposed to meeting with clients or meetings otherwise. It's all done via Zoom and those types of conversations. We spread everybody out. We looked at how we could, socially distance within the building. We looked at different ways that we could continue operating, safely. And then I have been putting out memos to our staff about best practices and things that we need to do, and basically creating a response plan. Our business is very cyclical, and our struggle would be we can't close in October in particular because of all the calendars that we make. And so, we had to come up with a plan to deal with the eventuality of someone having that disease, and then the potential, what would the spread look like? And so, had to develop a specific strategy related to that. That is, on the one hand, unique to our business, but also, embraces all the things that manufacturers and businesses are supposed to do to create a safe work environment. So, so it's a constant learning process, and things that we're constantly paying attention to and trying to educate everybody about.
Yeah.
And I keep asking our employees too, what is your experience out in the world? What are we not doing that you think we ought to be doing? And so that's when we have a conversation about masks inside the building, outside the building, when it's appropriate, when it's required. The straight wind issue last week that we had going through Iowa City caused us to turn our tornado alarm on, which everybody went to our safe space in our building. And then the comment would say, well, in COVID, we're not really supposed to be this close together. And I said, well, but you remember the memo we talked about, if you couldn't socially distance, you need to be wearing masks. So how many people are wearing a mask? And there were some who'd followed the instructions.
Right. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. I'm sure your father and your grandfather have stories to tell, but this is a good one. COVID-19 and then the straight line winds from last week. I mean, there are days as a business owner, you never know what's going to be on the other end of the phone when it rings. I get that. I still deal with that myself, but boy, this has been a big one. This has been a game changer for everybody. Did COVID-19 knock your production out much? I mean, were you off numbers wise too much or not?
That's a really good question. We have been able to shift some of the work that we traditionally do in the fall to other parts during the year, such that while our business is off, it's off in the single digits, not dramatically.
Yeah.
So that has helped us to some degree, and we have found things that we needed to print for COVID, as far as helping customers with either signage or decals. We did a nice project for the Iowa Secretary of State's office for the primary election back in June, and they wanted a special decal to remind people about socially distancing at polling sites. And so, that was 11,000 pieces that we produced. We may see that order again in October, but for June, a one-off kind of a situation, we shipped decals to all 99 counties to the state auditors so that they could then use in their program, and made it work. So things like that have been helping us along the way. We do a lot of things that are custom for customers, and so if people tell us a little bit about what they want, we can usually hone that into an idea and a product that's easily producible and works for them and so forth. So.
Oh yeah, essentially, if you can put ink on it, you can print it.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah. That's exciting. Well, David, I've got about a couple minutes here left. I did want to ask you. So, you've been involved with this business for so many years. What is some advice? What's a takeaway that someone who's maybe has been in business for a few years? What are some of the learnings that you've experienced in the past 28 years?
You bet. That's a great question. And I'll share with you. Two thoughts come to mind in particular related to that. One is it's tempting to try to be all things to all people. And really, you should have an expertise and know where your expertise starts and stops. In other words, there are things that we do really, really well, sweet spots with our business that we really enjoy doing. And there are things that stretch us that we never should have touched in the first place. And so knowing that and examining that is important. And, the gut question for us from time to time is, well, do you want to spend a Saturday trying to make up for the mistake of taking on this work or the extra hours that it is? Or do you want to spend that doing something more productive? And, so sometimes that's what we get into. The other thing, this is more of a personal lesson that I had to take. It used to really bother me when I saw people that would buy product that we could make, but they didn't buy it from us.
Right.
And I've learned over the course of time that I should celebrate any time that I see people using print or promotional advertising or otherwise, because it means that our market is expanding and there's excitement there. And so, it's that old adage that, competition first makes you mad and then it makes you better. And in this case, it's a reminder of, okay, if they didn't buy it from us, there's probably a reason. And maybe we should be thinking about that and thinking about how we continue to need to evolve and expand our business. So
that's great advice. That hit the nail on the head, I think, with so many people. Because you're right. The first time you see someone doing what you're doing, it's like, why did they come to me first, right?
Yep.
They're a friend of mine.
Well, and we had a really good customer that once said to us, we wanted, this was on our promotional side, we wanted a really cheap pen. And our salespeople at the time tried to convince this customer, no, that's really not what you want. It doesn't fit the image of your business and so forth and so on. Well, the customers ended up buying it from somebody else because what they realized is that the pen needed to carry an advertising message, but it was going to be left at every, grocery store checkout or church pew or different places around the community. And the folks who picked it up and used it didn't care how long the ink lasted in the pen. They just needed a pen at that particular moment in time.
Right.
So a value-based item that fit that particular parameter was exactly what this organization wanted. And so it took us about 5 years for us to finally figure out, that was the right thing. So sometimes we are the way.
Yeah, we are creatures of habit, that's for sure.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all for watching today. This episode of Business Basics with my friend David Bywater with TruArt Color Graphics, located right here in Iowa City. David, thanks again for being with us today.
Lee, you're most welcome. It was very much a pleasure.
Thank you.